Every life has a soundtrack. Join me as we invite guests to share their journey through music, one song at a time. 10 moments, 10 memories. I'm your host, Sean, and welcome to 10 Tracks.
Are you ready?
Welcome to 10 Tracks. My guest today is Devorah Hake Brinkerhoff. Devorah is a professional artist with more than 30 years of experience whose work has appeared in galleries across the US and in private collections around the world. From her studio in Oregon, she creates soul portraits, a unique mixed media practice that turns personal items like letters and photos into powerful tools for healing and self-discovery. Through her workshops and coaching, she helps people tap into their creativity, release old stories, and reconnect with who they really are. Laura, welcome to 10 Tracks.
Hi, Sean. Thanks for having me. Well done.
Where are you in the world?
I am outside of Portland, Oregon, in the US.
Okay, so it's still early your time
It is
based
Pacific.
on where we're.
Is
Um, Tell me a little bit about growing up. Are you originally from the West Coast or in Oregon?
No, nope. I'm originally from Vermont, born and raised in Norwich, which is a teeny little town on the border of Hanover, New Hampshire.
Okay.
So
And
I
then
lived
you
there.
just migrated to the West Coast?
I went all about. So I went to art school in Rhode Island and then lived in Boston and then over to Europe for quite a while, ending up in Prague, coming home, meeting my husband shortly thereafter, Washington, D.C., Seattle, Utah, here.
Okay.
So a
And
little
now
bit
this
of
is home and you
this is
feel a
home.
bit settled or
Yeah, I mean, we moved here a couple years ago for our youngest daughter who really needed a change. I think all of us needed a change, and we just put it all on her to get out of Dodge in Utah, which is a great place. But we'd been there for a long time, and my husband had been sick for a while, and we all just needed to disrupt what was happening and have a new start. So, yes, I love being in the Pacific Northwest. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and I adore the rainy weather. So I'm in the right place for that. People complain. I'm like, what are you doing here? This is the best. If you don't like it, there are other places. But
Yeah, for sure. I've been to Portland once many years ago, and it was I think it was right almost at the peak of where it became like kind of that kind
rainy.
of no, it was raining, but it was just like where I think it became like a lot of people from California migrated up to Portland and stuff. So I think it was before it really blew up. But it
Got
was
it.
still quite hip and a cool place.
Yeah, it is pretty hip. It is a very expensive city, and I think it's temporary for us. After high school, when she's done with high school, we'll go somewhere else. I'm not sure yet. I dream of northern Italy. I dream of some teeny tiny remote place somewhere, but we'll see.
Interesting. Okay.
I know, right?
So tell me about your art. Is this something that you have been doing from an early age, or how did you get into like just creating art, or not so much your soul portraits, but has art always been your background?
Always. So I was terribly dyslexic as a kid before dyslexia was a thing, and I had a lot of trouble reading and writing. I liked learning script because it felt like drawing, so I did really well with something like that. But I was always drawing, always coloring outside of the lines, of course. Um, so when the nice thing about growing up where I grew up, I could take classes at the local college and in high school. And so it was always just a great outlet for me. Um, I didn't even know that art school existed, which I think is really funny because my grandmother went to Pratt, which is an art school in New York City.
Hmm.
And I went to a summer program at Wesleyan College, and they were like, "Oh, you should really go to art school." And I applied, and that was that. So I've been doing, and I went down when you go to art school and you become like in a painting major, then you are shooting for galleries. Like that's the goal is to get into galleries and have representation. And I did that for a long time, but definitely wanted something more intimate. And when I started opening my studio, the people who came into the studio either like took off because what they saw made them, it didn't resonate or made them uncomfortable, or they sat down and like stayed for hours and we became friends. So stuff like that. It was very one, it, there I guess that's not true. There were also people who would come in and browse and talk and leave. But typically it was more on the fringes of I hate this or I love this kind of experience when it came to my work and the people who resonated with it.
Where did you get your first inspiration to kind of create or to, make art?
I think I it was more of a first language. Like it was so natural for me. It wasn't inspiration, it was more necessity. It was just the way that I saw the world. It was the way that I engaged with the world. I I really was not very, I talked a lot without ever knowing how to communicate. And so
Hmm.
creativity was my first language and I was so comfortable with it. I just thought everybody was like that. I really had no idea that there was another way. I think that's how we all feel as kids, right? We have no idea that there's another way to engage with the world or to move through it or to understand who we are. And that was the only way that I really could understand who I was. So like math was foreign. There was no way
Hmm.
that was going to happen. And there's such a limited, like, education. I just had the worst sense of myself because I didn't feel very intelligent. And so I my self-esteem in high school was pretty low. But there were so many other reasons that at the time I had no idea that very much unraveled and unraveled through creativity and artwork. My art was always telling me things about myself that I couldn't access. And looking back, I'm like, oh, holy cow. Like my body had
It was
information.
communicating with you.
Yeah, totally. And nudging me towards a deeper truth about myself that I look back on and I'm in awe of how that works
Were
or works
were your
for me.
family supportive of this?
They were supportive of me going to art school. I come from a family of doctors and PhDs, and so I was just like, my brother used to joke that I was adopted because I was just like the one who doesn't fit in this picture. It was me. Um, And yes, they were supportive of me going to art school. I think I did make them very uncomfortable and still make them very uncomfortable in the world. But that's okay. So
Well, we talked a little bit offline about putting together your 10 tracks. And I know this was a little bit of a labor of love, but also it caused a little bit of challenges because there were so many that you wanted to squeeze in, or, you know,
yeah,
one A, one B, one C. Um, so
D, E,
we,
and
we
F.
tried to
Yeah,
narrow it down to still keep 10, but there's probably a lot of honorary mentions that we could also bring into the mix. But
probably.
tell me about music to you. How does that work with your art and when you're creating and when you're just your day-to-day life?
Music always works with me. I am probably listening to music. I wouldn't a lot of the time. Sometimes I crave silence, but most of the time music is an ex it what's the word that I'm trying to reach? It accentuates whatever is happening in the moment for me. So it's always on in the studio. It helps me go deeper into myself and connect. sometimes I have a hard time finding the vibe of the day at the studio, and other times it just hits really, really well. So I'll search for it, whatever it is. But I love finding new music. And when I was growing up, music, again, it was such a weird time in New England. You know, there was a lot of like James Taylor, and that didn't make it on my list, but my parents were listening to Neil Diamond and Barry Manilow and ABBA, and that those were the early sort of introduction to music, and I have a love of all of them
Mhm.
because of that. But then it really pivoted as I got older, and then at art school it just kind of blew up. So uh, we didn't really, it was the radio back then, right? And I just Smiths weren't on the radio in
No.
the when I was growing up, um, but they were in college, so different
Yeah.
radio stations.
You had to go to college radio stations to really hear a lot of alternative music back in the 80s. And there
Yeah,
was a station, obviously, in New Orleans when I grew up, where we'd listen religiously, and you'd even try to record there would be like a hardcore punk evening. I think it was maybe Friday night or I don't know, one night right before the weekend or something, or Monday night. And you'd want to just record that so you could hear what songs they were picking, and they would get, these different new bands or just stuff that's very recent that you haven't heard. And then throughout the day, they would have more all kinds of eclectic and different stuff played on the radio. But it was probably the only outlet locally that you had to get to alternative to rock, pop. There wasn't even really much rap on the radio back then, in the
no
early
way.
80s. So that was even obscure to find. So it was really
Yeah,
just rock and pop and country maybe, but
yeah,
and oldies.
right,
Um, you know,
exactly.
and I probably gravitated more to the oldies because I felt like they had, that was more inspiration than just the generic rock, even though probably some of that I will, appreciate now. But
Sure.
pop was kind of always on the fence of, borderline here and there.
Right? The top 40, remember that? I was just like, oh, how can this be number one? Whatever it was, I was pretty bored. But I didn't know that there
Yeah.
were, I didn't know that there were alternatives.
I think about it today, and even if I'm scrolling Instagram and there's so much, and if you put a few kind of points in on your profile of what you like or what you are, you get so much. And now, like especially with 10 Tracks Instagram account, there's all these people talking about 10 new albums, 10 this or five, albums you have to check out, or new bands or new artists. And so I'm getting to explore so much new music just from that.
Yeah,
Besides, if you have like Spotify or one of the streaming services, which takes your profile and kind of already says, okay, well, you like the National or you like this band, so you
yeah,
must like so and
ex-
so or
exactly.
try them. And that's been also I've been turned on to some interesting bands that I've grown to like from that, and just that algorithm, I guess, that's kind
Yeah.
of follows me.
It's kind of amazing, Spotify and that was the first music streaming service, and I just was blown away. And you're right, there's so much happening where you're exposed to basically everything. And children help with that too. Like my daughter's music taste is Midwestern angst, she calls it, I think. Emo, Midwestern,
What
I don't know. That's
what's
her.
the age?
She's almost 17.
Okay, not a Swifty.
No. Is
Okay,
that Taylor Swift? Is that
yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Yeah, no, no. She's about as opposite from Taylor Swift as you can get.
Okay, that's a
It's
you.
interesting.
I'm not gonna say you did something right, but because then it might look like I'm trying to bash Taylor Swift, which I am
Right.
indifferent to. But
Same.
that's pretty cool. To
She's really neat, and her music taste, I'm like, oh, send me that one. So she expands. I'm not sure I would sit down and listen to it, but it is an awesome way to get to know someone. So I love listening to what she listens to and what she loves. And yeah, it's not Taylor Swift.
My niece and I have she's in Texas in Houston, and she's 15, and we have a shared is it letterbox where you can check out films because she's big into like older films. So I've kind of given her some of my old favorites that are, more or less borderline to age 17 or whatever. But um, films that I kind of grew up or was inspired and really liked, and then seeing some of the ones that she likes, and it's pretty cool to see how we have definitely some overlap, but interesting things that she's already kind of learned or been taken in. So it's pretty cool, and you
That's
learned a
so
few
neat.
things.
Uh, just tell me one of the movies that you really loved.
Well, a film that I obviously was a big influence on me, and not so much that it's because it's quite a dark film, Clockwork Orange.
Oh, okay.
And I think this is something she must have heard about, whether through school or friends or
Uh-huh.
something, so it's an interesting one. And I've talked to my sister about it, like how she wants to handle that, because obviously it is a very dark subject, and,
Yeah.
to put it still in a positive light, even um, Stanley Kubrick, who directed this, was one of his iconic films before he did some of the other ones. He even banned it in the UK because he felt it was too disturbing and it's a British
Interesting.
film in the UK with Malcolm McDowell, I think, is the main character in it. If you haven't seen it, but it's pretty compelling, but it's quite a disturbing
Yeah,
film.
I
Kind of like this
remember the book.
futuristic,
Yeah.
yeah, Anthony, I think I've read the book too. Anthony Burgess, maybe,
I'm
or something like that.
terrible with names. Terrible.
Um, but that's on both of our lists, and there's a couple of other ones like that that I think she's kind of um, exploring, which I think is
Yeah.
cool because I probably saw it at her age as
Yeah.
well. I would
Yeah.
have been that age when I was able to see it and watch it with friends. You
Yeah.
get it in from a DVD shop or whatever,
Yeah.
um,
Remember? Yeah.
and stuff like
Um,
that. So pretty cool.
Hitchcock, did he do what was the birds? Was it just birds or the birds? Was it
The
just
Birds.
birds? So we were just talking about that last night, and that's a pretty disturbing film. And I forget the book that that's based on, that my son was reading, and it was just like the movie is so powerful and disturbing, but beautiful, like so beautiful. And I remember seeing that in art school for the beauty of it, and it will always remain in
Yeah.
the images of that.
I think I can pretty much watch. I'm a big fan of Hitchcock in a lot of
Uh-huh,
his films,
uh-huh,
especially the ones with Jimmy Stewart, Cary Grant,
uh-huh,
and
uh-huh.
some of the other actors. And The Birds was an interesting one, and I didn't find it too horrific. Whereas Psycho, I think, is I'm a little less interested in watching that again, especially if I'm having a shower by myself. But we have a glass
I
thing,
know
so
it's
I'm not as
I know.
worried. But it's probably the least favorite, even though it's probably the most iconic, and the
Yeah,
shower scene in
exactly.
particular. But I think his other films where there's this slight chance of identity mistake or something, like in Cary Grant in North by Northwest, where he lifts his hand to ask the waiter about a pen because he has to make a phone call or something, and then they think that he's referring to, I don't know if you've seen it or remember it.
I
Um,
don't remember it.
I think they were trying to page somebody because they were looking for that guy to kill him. And
Mm,
he raised his hand innocently. He wasn't that guy, to do something else. And so it was a mistaken identity or something. It's just clever, just the way that in Hitchcock did that.
very human error.
Yeah, exactly. Let's dive into track one.
Okay.
I mentioned this band a minute ago because they are a very one of my favorites. I'm really, really a big fan of them. This is the National.
Uh-huh.
I have seen them once live in LA when I was living there, and this is off my favorite album from them as well. This is a song called "Slipped."
Uh-huh. It's so I it two bands, and we're gonna get to one. This is the second one that I was sort of obsessed with at the studio, and I love that song, and it was so hard for me to choose because there are so many songs that I love, and his voice is just incredible. Um, and so both at the studio and also oddly, walking around New York City, I would listen to the National. And so it just brings me back to certain paintings and certain places that I was like traveling, treading along the sidewalks. And with music in my ears. So I don't have a ton to say. I saw them um, I think at least twice. And I'm not a huge fan of concerts because there are so many people. Um, And I want it for myself, right? Like I want to be in
Mm.
my own world and I get really distracted by people. So yeah, pulled away, pulled out of myself, pulled out of the music. But I love them. I think they're an incredible band and they've gotten very, very popular. They're everywhere in television and shows and for soundtracks. So, but
Yeah,
I
I'm surprised at that. And in a good way. I'm happy for them, of course.
right.
But I know that it's funny because I had a friend who I used to work with previously, and I remember her telling me she's a bit younger and she was going to go see them in concert
Uh-huh.
in Berlin. And this was I was in the
Oh,
Berlin office then, and I remember her saying, "Oh, I'm really, wow, you're going to go see them?" Because she didn't, again, maybe I was being a bit judgy, but I was like, they're really cool. And she goes, it's kind of angry music. And I was like,
really?
and I took that as a compliment, but I was like, okay, so you're just going because somebody gave her a ticket or something like that, not interested. And then I think I was reading an interview or listened to something where they talked about, and maybe it was the singer, Matt Berninger or something. I forget
Yeah,
his
yeah, something like
um,
that.
but he says that there's playlists about them called Sad Dad Rock, and that's
Oh
what they're
yeah, that's
called.
true. That's so funny. Yeah, I guess I don't think of them that way at all, but I can see why, or angsty or whatever, they're moody, right? But I love their lyrics and lyrics are so important to me.
Yeah,
I spend a lot of time like listening to what they're saying and trying to figure out both. This is something that I really get interested in as a painter and in the creative field. Like, so as a listener and as a writer and singer, like, where do we intersect? And what did he mean when, does he write it all and sing it all? I don't know.
the singer.
Yeah,
He
Matt.
writes the lyrics. Yeah,
Okay,
and
so like what was he thinking? Like I always want to know what the story is. And then and then of course there's my own story and wondering where, like what the truth of if I'm guessing correctly on what he meant when he wrote it. And it doesn't matter, right? Because it brings me to my own story. But
yeah, for sure.
I love thinking about that. And so to me, it's funny that people think of it as angry music. I just think it's like so intelligent and accurate and a good depiction of human nature.
The lyrics on this album are, like I said, it's my favorite of theirs, and I do like quite a lot of their early stuff and some of the new stuff. But this song in particular is like saying, "I'm having trouble inside my skin. I'll
Right.
try to keep my skeletons in,"
Exactly.
which is pretty. And I think no matter what he meant, like you said, I think you take that for yourself, and it's when he gives it away, he's given it to us
Exactly.
to have for ourselves, for however we interpret it or want to use it, I think, in a way.
That line in particular, I think, is so powerful because, so much of what I do and so much of what I've been curious about is how do we become who we are in the world? When do we give up parts of ourselves? How and why do we give up those parts of ourselves? Like, where do we drop who we like self-betrayal and sort of leave that imprint of self, soul, essence energetically, like on a subway or with a person or an experience in time. And then how do we call it back? Can we call it back? I believe we can. But those experiences that really shape us, and yeah, so I thought that line in particular was brilliant, and I really resonated with that experience of leaving parts of myself in places that regretted or at the time or a little bit later and look at it so differently now. Um, but exactly, you nailed it, and I'm glad you brought out that lyric because it's really powerful.
Yeah. I think I was asked, I interviewed recently on a podcast, and I was asked about, what do I prefer first? And I've asked a couple of guests who really are into music or musicians. I always listen or hear the voice and the lyrics first, even though I love certain types of music. There's stuff that I really love that my wife can't stand or thinks is monotonous, like Kraftwerk or other kind of monotone styles. But to me, again, even though Kraftwerk has this amazing sound, they just have the simplest lyrics, but it's just so powerful. But
Yeah.
there's lots of artists like that who maybe aren't great singers or just, but their words are so powerful. And
Yeah.
to me, they could be banging trash cans,
Right.
but if the lyrics are there and powerful, then and there's been some pop music where I've actually said, like they have quite ironic lyrics that's, won me over because the lyrics are clever or witty or different compared to just, there's a country song that I love and I heard it a while ago and I think Alicia Keys did a kind of live version of it at the Country Awards. It is about um, I got a girl crush or something like that, girl crush. And I never
Mhm.
really knew the song. I wasn't like don't listen to the radio that often. And when I heard the lyrics and understood what it was about, I loved it because it's like, wow, that's crossing so many different, just throwing this lyric around that isn't normally in country because,
Yeah.
they tend to be a
Yeah.
very, traditional maybe.
Uh-huh.
So that was just, I thought was so cool. And I felt,
Yeah.
I shouldn't be surprised because I think there is a lot of great artists and people who can do this, but I guess it really threw me because I wasn't expecting that.
Which is so nice when you're not expecting something. And it's really brave, right? Especially in that umbrella, right? Where you don't think she's breaking the boundary a little bit on what can be talked about, which I always appreciate.
Yeah, I think there's also the song by Katy Perry, and I'm throwing this out to any artist out there because I think she has a song "I Kissed a Girl and I Liked It."
So it's pushing the boundary,
Yeah,
which is great. My internet is saying it's unstable. So did I freeze on you a little?
you did for a second.
Sorry. Oops.
It's okay. It was a good freeze. You had a good pose. You were just kind of like in mid thought. Um, let's jump to track two.
Okay.
Now, am I right in knowing that this band is a local band from Portland?
Who is it?
This is Modest Mouse,
Modest Mouse.
Any City Made of Ashes.
I have no idea if they're from Portland.
And
Um,
they might be your neighbor for all you, you
oh,
know.
I'd be so excited. I did see them in concert probably more than anybody because I love them so much. Uh, and again, it's the lyrics, right? Like when my husband actually introduced me to Modest Mouse and he liked one song and I took that song and ran with it. But that song in particular, because it starts out with I want to hit you in your face and punch you in your glasses. And it's really powerful. And I was so mad at the time. Like I was just so angry. And I just loved the visual. And it again, it was perfect. So they have so many songs that I love. They also have a song called Trailer Trash.
Uh,
And I just think that nobody's and actually, a country band did a cover of did a bunch of Modest Mouse covers and with a banjo and it was so cool and of course I forget who that is.
oh wow, that sounds
Yeah,
cool. I'd like to.
it was really neat. And so if you look up like Modest Mouse covers or I'll just email it to you, but I'll find it. But
Yeah.
that Trailer Trash song has their lyrics are so smart and I feel like they have a lot of awareness around human nature, but also like the state of the world and global warming, and so it can be very loud music, which I love listening to music really loud, and especially when it's mirroring something that I feel. So I just think they're great.
I really am a big fan too, and I've kind of got caught onto them probably quite late, um, probably mid 2000 or late 2000. But there's albums of theirs like "We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank," and then "Good News for People Who Love Bad News." I think their titles, the song titles, and then the lyrics, like you said, they
They're
just spin
clever.
things around.
Yeah.
It also reminds me of a band that I really love and I always have, The Cramps. I don't know if
Okay.
you're
Yeah.
familiar
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
guys.
Yep.
They tend to do that as well. They're a bit cowpunk kind of country
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
or hillbilly punk or something. And so, but they play around with genres, play around with words and stuff. And so Modest
Yeah.
Mouse is a lot heavier in some ways, but also melodic in other ways, but then just twist that kind of and play. But so
Yeah.
clever the way they do it, which
Yeah.
and it brings a lot to think about and it makes you think like while you're listening to them you can't just like oh yeah
Yeah.
tumbling
Yeah.
around. It's very
Yeah.
much you got to keep you on your seat to hear
Yeah.
what they're talking about and to follow along, which I love. So
Me
I'm a big
too.
fan. um
Exactly.
but this song is quite like
Violent.
it's quite in your
Violent.
face.
Yeah. Punch you in your glasses, and I hit my glasses. That hurts a lot, right? Like, so it's like the biggest, most powerful bang for your, yeah, buck. It was, we had to go like into a darker, deeper side. We had just discovered that our children had been sexually abused, and I just wanted to like kill everyone. And I think it's
Wow.
really important to not only to talk about that side of humanity, because first of all, we all have a shadow. And when we lock it up, it just gets bigger. And so for me, both of these albums um, kept me like releasing this kind of emotion. I, I get to release a lot making paintings, but it helps me to listen to music, move my body, and have other people vocalize what I am feeling because it makes you feel less alone in it. It's
Yeah.
and that it is recognizing that part of human nature. And I really appreciate people who will go there in music because I absolutely go there in painting and I go there in my own heart and mind, right? I I'm very sensitive and gentle, and while I like don't like spiders, I won't kill them, right? So I will kill mosquitoes, but I can't actually imagine punching someone. But I think that feeling of wanting to punch someone, and a friend of mine was going through a divorce, and the way he dealt with it is to take up boxing and just get can we swear on this show? Or
Mm, yes.
the living shit kicked out of him, like just punched out of him. And he would send me these pictures, just totally bloodied, and I would then turn that into a painting. And it was all happening at the same time. Like,
Wow.
how can you sign up to get hit? Like, and to go in and hit somebody else. So I just thought I like thinking about that. Like, what does it take to step into the ring? And what do those feelings inside of ourselves mean and where do they come from and how do we express them? Because I think they're in all of us.
I think there's definitely a rage that
Yeah,
people and they need to find outlets, and sometimes that's when it can get really bad, and where it tends to get abusive or hurtful to other people or to yourself,
yeah,
without trying to channel this into positive. Because I
yeah,
think, when you go to the gym, when you go for a run, when you go out and do physical exercise or just some type of like, you're releasing a lot, and it's so important to help with balance.
yeah,
I know days if I go and I can do more things, I'm way more motivated and kind of alert than days and sleep better at night too, than days when I've just been lethargic and just kind of flop around and sit on the sofa and watch TV all day or do very little. And
yeah,
it does impact, and it impacts my sleep.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I think it's a shame if people don't how they can try to help themselves. But you've you've talked quite you're very vocal or share some of this like really heartbreaking stuff that's happened to your family.
Yeah. It Yeah, so I had my own experience of sexual abuse that I was not aware of until I got pregnant. So again, kind of the body keeps the score, that Bissell book, the
Hmm.
way we keep and bury trauma that feels too difficult to comprehend. And especially for me, it's hard looking back to know, like, I think dyslexia is very common and it's, I believe, inherited. I'm not sure, but also trauma and I don't know what's what or how to tease out which is which. And I don't think it necessarily matters. But I am so glad that I had the outlet of drawing and painting because it just worked as a release valve on what was stuck inside, because those lived experiences have a huge impact on how we engage with other people and allowed me to get rid of a little bit of that pressure, that steam that was coming out sideways, no matter what, it was coming out sideways. But like you were saying, to have a healthier outlet for it, I did plenty of things that weren't healthy. Um, but that was a healthy one. And so,
Hmm.
and when I look back on all of that too, it made me who I am today. But why I talk about it so, and I didn't for a very long time, because it's scary to talk about and it upsets other people greatly. And so I knew it would not be well received by my family, and it wasn't. And I lost them. I lost them over it for probably about 5 years. I was like booted out of the family, and I understand why. I get it. There were lots of things that happened at that time. It's so weird, and I can get into that story, but like we found out about our kids. It took years for us to figure out who. But when we found out who, my it was somebody in my husband's family. And when we told that family, so my husband's dad, um, I don't know, it gets confusing, but it's dangerous, right? It's such
Was
a
it
huge.
like denial and just kind of
Well, not only was it denial, people don't want to talk about sexual abuse, but he called up my family and said, "Your daughter is saying this about you. Please join us in a lawsuit against your children, our children, or really your
wow?
daughter."
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the level. So I had landed on my father as responsible for me. And I don't know if that's true or not. It was the first, it just washed over me one day. And I had gotten into the habit of listening to my body. And I knew I couldn't tell my dad, but I did tell my husband's family. And they were very supportive of me, but it was distant, right? It wasn't somebody in their family, it was somebody in my family. And so when it turned out that for my children, it because it usually is somebody we know,
Right.
um, when it turned out to be somebody in their family responsible for my children, that was too close. It was way too threatening. And that's when my father-in-law and stepmother-in-law reached out to my family and revealed that I had landed on my father. And that ended up in a lawsuit for grandparent rights and was probably like, talk about a sucker punch. Like, I was so devastated and brokenhearted. And there was no phone call. There was no like, is this true? There was no checking in. It was just like, we're suing you and you are out of the family because you believe this about your father. And what I really had always felt is that the people, and this makes me a bit controversial, but the people who are causing that kind of harm, usually, not always, have received that kind of harm. And so it's just a chain.
Hurt
And
people, hurt people.
exactly. And, and so if we're not dealing with it, then it just keeps rippling out in the most dangerous ways. And so we can do horrific things to each other, especially when it's unconscious and unprocessed. And so my whole goal is to help people process lived experience to reduce harm, not
Yeah.
only towards others, but absolutely towards themselves, because the prison that we live in is hell. Like, it's absolute hell. And I never want somebody to feel the kind of shame and devastation that goes along with with damage. So whether it's sexual violence or military violence or suicide or like whatever, the things that are so hard to touch can cause so much internal damage that our life, our quality of life is just very dimmed. And that's a scary place to be. And I've been there, and I don't want anyone to stay there. I think we all visit that place, or can. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
there are some charmed lives that don't, and that's great. But mine wasn't that.
No, and I remember reading Matthew McConaughey's biography or book a few months ago or 6 months ago, Green Lights, and I remember him mentioning that he was sexually abused, but
Yeah,
he said it almost matter of fact because it was just a fact of life in his life at a time, and then he moved on, and it was not that he was dismissing it. I think he wasn't letting it define him.
right,
This was something, but it didn't then take over my life and made that wasn't who I was.
right,
I am, Matthew of everything else that I do that is what defines me.
right.
And I thought that was quite inspirational because I think um, if more people can understand the trauma sometimes that we all go through and
Yeah,
how not to let that own us or define who we are and how
yeah.
we are then, in the future.
Exactly. Yeah. Who can we become despite, not because of?
Yeah.
And that victim mentality that I really took on made me miserable, right? It's no fun. Like it's a horrible place to live. It made sense to me for a while because it had been buried for so long. But absolutely, who are we underneath all the lived experience? Who are we beyond how we have defined ourselves. So yeah, like identity, what is that? And when you
Mhm.
start dissolving aspects of your identity, who can you then become? And that part's really exciting. And so that's really what my work has, since that time, it led to my most meaningful work. And so from that aspect, like I'm 100% grateful for that experience. Not at the time. I will never
Yeah,
wish
yeah.
that on anyone, but absolutely led to something that to me, I feel so much purpose and meaning through.
And this is soul portraits we're talking about now, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us a little bit more about how, I mean, obviously you just shared that what you've been through kind of helped you create this or to,
Yes.
but when you decided to do this and have this as call it soul portraits,
Mm.
how how has that helped or work with other people and how they're for to help them to transform in their trauma or what they're going through?
Well, especially when people have things that are so hard to talk about, they don't have to talk about it and they can do it all on their own. So they can work with me in a workshop or like in a commission aspect. But really, so especially with veterans, this has happened a couple of times. So, and it's really interesting. So they'll come into my studio knowing nothing about me, nothing about my work, and they'll resonate with a certain painting. And I'll be like, huh, like, tell me what this speaks to in you. And they'll talk about like an experience in combat. And I'll say, oh, I've actually, that's really powerful. We'll have a discussion. And this one gentleman, he was like, you can't touch what I've done. What you can't touch it. And I'm like, you're right. Like I can't, but you can. And
Yeah.
it's really okay. And so it's what we do with the experiences that we have that causes so much internal distress and damage. And so when people start, so they take tangible materials of whatever that experience is. So this other person, her daughter committed suicide. And so it's like, what materials really connect to the place in you that you feel the most heartbroken, that feels so scary to talk about or touch, and you don't have to talk about it. And for a lot of people, it's too soon. Like it's just too soon, and you will know when you're ready because you're holding and ripping up like papers and photographs and letters that all led to signing up for the military in the first place or choosing to have a child or so we can go back and revisit the decisions and choices we made, but from a lens of being the witness rather than reliving it. And that's the very most important thing, is
Yeah.
that it's not about reliving it, and it's absolutely not about blame or judgment or criticism, because it just keeps the whole suffering going when we do that. And it's easy to slip into self-criticism and judgment. But
Hmm.
that's sort of like an emphatic, like, we're not here to continue that. There is no good that can come out of that. And people need to be ready to let that part go. Um,
Yeah.
so when people are often afraid, to open up those materials and to lean into the discomfort. But what's on the other side of that discomfort is like, it's like a grounded, peaceful, like, oh, wait a second, I am not these experiences. I have never worked with somebody who has come back and said, I'm these experiences.
Yeah.
It's always a realization, a feeling in their body, a knowing in their body that says, I am not this experience. And leaning into it is what allowed them to really internalize that awareness. And that's where the power is. Like, you are not who you think you are. You experience this, and we're not denying the experience, but you're not your experiences.
Have you dealt or worked with any soldiers that have had extreme PTSD?
Yes. And not only seeing people near them, next to them, best friends in the trenches, die, be blown up, in horrific, seen horrible, horrific, um, that I cannot fathom. So one person, who killed people really, really well in Vietnam and had a lot of medals for doing so. So it was extremely confusing because he did really, really a very good job that absolutely he could not live with internally.
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
children, women and children, husbands, like the whole nine yards, whole families, so much death and violence, and brutal, right? Like brutal, brutal death and violence that he witnessed and was a part of, was rewarded for, but also condemned for when he came back to the country, right? And so there's all of this confusion around it. And it was pretty interesting to listen to his story. He was going to go to Yale and ended up going to Vietnam instead. And he was wanting to major in philosophy, and then ended up killing people. And when he came back, he became a lawyer and fought a different fight, but ended up going back to Vietnam and sort of working through a lot of his own experience and exchanged quite a profound message with a waiter in Vietnam and gave him his dog tags because this waiter in Vietnam lost his entire family in the war. And so they just like gave each other a blessing that said, may your family and their family never ever have to experience war. Um,
Wow.
and it was really powerful. And so I created a painting for him, and and it was all during COVID. And so he sent me a lot of stuff through email, and I printed it out, and I did a lot of research of like what it was when he grew up. But he also had a story that his mother tried to smother him when he was a very young child. And so, like, there's this history of trauma in his own
Yeah.
life, and part of why he made the choice to get the hell out of Dodge and not, and he's such a smart man, so intelligent and emotionally intelligent, and really wanted to, like, this is after, right? He did a lot of his own work. He had failed marriages. He had a lot that he needed to work through, but he was open to it, and a beautiful writer himself. and just a very thoughtful human that I have a lot of respect for. And he just gave me all of his material and said, you can read anything and everything, which I did. I poured through it for weeks and weeks, and it percolates. And then I get this image and it sort of comes channeling through me. And then over the weeks, the images kind of trickle down to one or two, and then I pick one of them and sort of go from there. But he came in at the end of it. He gave me all of his metals to push through the canvas, I think he had a purple heart, and I sewed it on because that doesn't have a like a post and a clasp. Um, and he didn't want the painting. He was like, sell it to somebody else, which ended up selling to a man in Utah who it's like a very dark, it has lightness and darkness, and he talked about the helicopters as being dragonflies, and so he's surrounded by dragonflies and he's in nature. Um, and I've totally lost the question that you asked. Do I ever work with extreme PTSD? Yes. And sexual violence, right? Is another one that I work a lot with because these are the unspeakable things that people aren't sharing their particular story necessarily. He did, but really it depends on what aspect we're working together in. If it's a commission, there's a lot of sharing. If it's a workshop, it's a very
Yeah.
individual experience. And people almost always feel like such a sense of relief because they did it, right? They sat with whatever it is that they're most afraid of. And that takes an enormous amount of courage. We're so afraid of it, and it's really not nearly as bad as we think it is going to be. Like it's so much less terrible than what we're doing inside of our own head.
Yeah. And just by them taking those pictures, taking those sentimental things that maybe are harboring and kind of fueling this pain by
Mhm.
putting it onto this canvas or just kind of releasing it from where it was, that's almost like they've finally let go.
Absolutely. And I encourage people to rip things up because there's a somatic release in that. And because it takes a lot of courage to rip something up, oddly. Like I don't, it took me a while to learn that because I think it's pretty fun. Um, but if somebody's ripping up their wedding photo, they feel like they're going to get into trouble. So if somebody's breaking a medal, because you can saw them with a metal saw. You can
Hmm.
you can do all kinds of things, and it's a way to sort of make like to break apart literally the experiences that we have, the energetic experience. It dissolves it kind of instantaneously. And those parts of us, they just want to be acknowledged. They don't need to be like followed, but they want to be acknowledged. And so when you engage with them, you're automatically honoring them at the same time. Even if you're ripping them up, you're not destroying them, you're really honoring them. And that's the heart of it. Is you're saying, yeah, this did happen and I engaged in it and I was a participant in it, but I can forgive myself. And that's the most important thing. And that's what I like, that self-forgiveness is it. That's
Wow.
where it's at.
It's a beautiful way to do that. And I think it's so incredible the the process that you're working with people and doing. So
I feel so lucky. I feel so very, very lucky. It's really powerful. And I'm in awe of people's courage because this stuff is hard. It is hard, but we can do it. And what's on the other side is just like so worth it.
yeah, for
And
sure.
over and over again, people are like, "Oh, I wish I'd done this sooner." And it's the resistance to those things, and it makes a ton of sense. And there is not one person's story that I have ever felt judgment towards, like not one. I just have so much empathy for it.
Let's get back to your music. This is track three.
Oh dear.
Uh, I wasn't that familiar with her, but I'd heard her name, and I think a lot of circles people keep talking about her and buzzing about her. Annie Difranco. This is
Uh-huh.
32 Flavors.
Uh-huh.
Um, there's a lines, I'm not between you and your ambition. I'm a poster girl with no poster, which I
Yeah.
love those lines.
Yeah. So good, so much happier. And it's Ani Difranco, and she'll get really upset if you call her Annie.
Ani.
Uh,
Sorry, Ani. Damn it.
um, my husband introduced me to her, and I just love that song because there's like we're not one flavor, right? We're 32 and then some. So when we first started dating, he said it made him think of me, and I was very, very flattered by that. And she's so righteous, you know. I mean that in the best way. Like she seems to talk about things with such integrity that she's not ever trying to take from somebody else.
Hmm.
So I really like her lyrics. She has a lot of great albums. What was the other song in that? Like Untouchable Face. So good. She has so many good songs. I highly recommend her.
Now, this is from 1995, this
Yeah.
album.
Yeah.
Not a Pretty Girl,
Mhm.
I think it was called.
Yeah, that's right. You're right.
But it was interesting because, like I said, I heard the name but I wasn't really that familiar with her. So when I saw it and it just kind of checking out this song and some of her other stuff, it actually I really like her voice a lot.
She
So
has a neat voice.
Ani, not Annie.
Ani,
Sorry.
Ani, right? Yeah, and I again, really clever lyrics and a lot of diversity in her music too. So I was not bored listening to her. And for somebody who didn't go to concerts, I saw her a couple of times too on a pier in Seattle, and it was really small and at night, and it was so fabulous. Um, so I loved it long time ago. She's great.
When you talk about music and how it's definitely plays a big part in your work and life in general,
Hmm.
um, I mean, have like sometimes like I wouldn't say like we said angry music like the National, but I disagree with that completely. But
Me too.
a lot of music that I am interested in, they have a lot darker sometimes stories or darker meanings. I mean, think of Nick Cave. I mean, a lot of
Uh-huh.
his stuff is so powerful and but has a darkness to it. But in that darkness, I feel so much beauty and so much light. So I don't
Exactly.
like if you just look at it on the surface, think, oh, it's dark subject he's always talking about. But there's so much passion and power and beauty. Do you
Exactly.
ever think that people are misunderstanding some of the music choices or your influences because you're kind of you are channeling this light through that these types of music?
Uh, I think are just so afraid of the darkness, and it's in all of us. And I find it such a relief to hold it, to have it pointed towards, to have it just acknowledged and allowed. So I find that in and of itself light and beauty. I think when we turn away from it in fear or shame, that just exacerbates darkness. So, yes, I think people misunderstand it and like what I like musically. I think in Spotify, like at the end of the year, they're like, you like such and such. And like
You're a goth.
you're they call me a vampire. And I'm like, okay, that tracks. That works for me. Undead, great. I'll take it. Right? That's another compliment. So I just yeah, I think there's a lot of beauty there. And so I think it's beautiful. I like literally beautiful. Haunting, beautiful. Some stuff really haunting. Yeah, Nick Cave, is it Cave?
Cave.
C-A-V-E? Yeah. Beautiful. Like I love him. And his like super gravelly voice. Do I have the right person? Yeah. Um,
But why do
yeah.
you think people are so afraid of this?
Because because they think because we want there to be something bad so that we can think we're good, or like we want to have a delineation. So if I do this and listen to this and I don't know, like then I'm good. So if it's pop music, then I'm light and fun and cheerful. And I just I don't resonate with it. Like everybody. So I love that Madonna is the icon, powerful person that she is, like totally awesome, role model leader for so many. And I just never resonated with her music, even though like some of the lyrics are really powerful. I think she's incredibly talented and can dance, like so mega talented on every level. And it just didn't touch the darkness for me. Um, so I was bored, right? Like
Mm.
I get bored by staying just in the on the one side of things because we're so much more dynamic than that. So I want the layers. I want all the layers and I want people to take risks. And she did take risks. Like so many people took risks and they just didn't feel like risks to me, which is not fair at all. Like they were taking huge risks. Um,
But I think
so
it's what inspires you and where you resonate. So although Madonna may have taken massive risk and she has definitely opened, and I think she definitely inspired and empowered a lot of women in
yeah.
particular,
Yeah.
throughout her career, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're wrong for not registering with
Right.
her art. It's just like
Right.
any kind of art. If you
Any.
it
Yeah.
either connects or doesn't connect. So it
Yeah.
doesn't discredit her.
Right.
It's you're looking for a different art,
Right.
which I
Darker.
would yeah, well,
Dark. And I
to
don't
fit
think
your vampire
you're right. I
demographic.
I just, yeah, my vampire demographic. You can just call me Devorah the vampire. Kind of goes well. Yeah, and I just don't think it's dark. I think it's beautiful. All of this music that I listen to, none of it feels dark to me. Not one thing. It just feels
Mhm.
real. And it feels real. And it feels like it mirrors something inside of me. So yeah, maybe I'm pretty dark. That's okay
No,
though.
I think I don't think it's dark either, and I totally agree with you. So it's just it's somewhat disappointing when people do kind of label that when they, I think you can't always have beer and Skittles all the
Right.
time. So I
Darn it.
think
Come on.
I think there needs to be a little bit more substance
Yeah.
than just that.
Yeah.
Um, let's get to track 4. This is Cat Power, Manhattan.
Uh-huh. So I love Cat Power, and I was listening to Cat Power and Regina Spektor at the same time. That's why I tried to cram them both in on that track. But Cat Power, I just think again, her voice is beautiful. What she does with music is stunning. So that song Manhattan and People Come and People Go, I'm
Mm.
like, oh, they really do, right? People come and people go. And I also really struggled with my name a lot and actually ended up changing it. And for a short while to what it is now, to how you know me, it hasn't always been this. It's a version of this name, but
You weren't a
um,
symbol before, right? Or
I
anything like
was
that.
not a symbol.
Okay, just making
Did I
sure.
pass a test? A vampire symbol? I don't know. Um, so I was always struggling with my name, and then so we were listening to this song, and people started calling me Hattie because it was always playing in my studio. So when people are in my studio, they called me Hattie after this because we were talking about this song. Um, and and I just love her voice and her lyrics, and that again reflected how we move through the world and gain and lose relationship to ourselves and to others. And so I think that that's what she's speaking to in this song. And I felt like she did a really good job with it. And she's got some beautiful, beautiful songs.
I was really excited to see this on your list because it's probably one of my favorites by her, and I do like a lot from her previous album to this one. But I remember hearing this album when it came out. This was what 2012, and gravitating to this song in particular. Just the nod to Manhattan, but then just the people come, people go, those lines in there, and it's again probably fits my sort of, I don't know if this monotone, monotonous kind of just the song itself, kind of in the Kraftwerk vein. Maybe you should take that as a compliment too, hopefully, because they.
Hopefully.
But it's to me it's very powerful, and I
Yeah.
just really like that it's gives you this, I don't know, 3 odd minutes of her just reflection on New York, of herself and maybe the time of in her life when she was going through that, and she, brings it down to when maybe she was living in New York at the time. I don't know, that much about her background, but she paints this kind of picture so well. That's such a great song.
Well, and how like that city, and I was just there, it's just packed, right? It's just, and how do you, again, like how do you feel alone and with, which you do. Like I often feel more alone when I'm just surrounded by a mass of people. Um,
Yeah.
it was a really beautiful, so it's funny, you're funny. We have a lot in common here.
I haven't graduated to become a vampire yet, but
You have
but
more
maybe.
diversity.
Well, I gotta tone down some of my colors maybe, and then I can get into it. Or I'll stay with the blue, and maybe that'll kind of let my application get more merit. Um, is there any like, you know, with some of the other songs that you kind of put as your honorary mentions, but is there certain artists that you kind of gravitate towards, or is it just a song comes into your kind of sphere and it just takes it, or are there certain artists that you kind of follow quite religiously, regardless?
Well, once they, that's a really interesting question. Um, I think when I was younger, if I liked one, remember, like we would get tapes and but there were, and I would make tapes and I would often like do one song over and over and over, the entire tape, both sides, and just listen to that.
You
Which
you take one song off of that tape and record it, like, I don't know, if it's 45 minutes on one side of the cassette, you would have, I don't know, 12 versions of that song, just
just
same song.
same song over and over, put it in the tape deck. And man, I should really know because I forget that the song, but I remember. Oh my God. I did that, and while my father was teaching me how to drive in Vermont, we would just listen to one song over and over again on the back roads of Vermont, dirt roads, while he was teaching me how to drive. And he was so fine with it. And that is one of the reasons why I love him to death. And so like to have just, I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing, right? Like how people are like, well, how can you, if your father did that, how can you love him? And I'm like, because, right? It's not his defining, and I don't even know if it's him, right? Because I don't have any memories. So it's this, nobody is good and nobody is bad. And if he can listen to one song from his like 15-year-old daughter for hours over and over again. I'm like, that is some serious awesomeness and patience. And I wish I remembered that song. It probably was something to do with angels at the time, like
Hmm.
Jane Siberry. I don't know if that, Peter Gabriel. I don't know. It was a long time ago. So, um, religiously, yes, for a little while. And then if I was following an artist religiously eh, and I didn't really resonate with the songs, but I was trying to be cool or something, so no, I don't follow somebody religiously. Um, I will get notified through Spotify, like when certain artists that I have a lot of songs has a new song and I'll listen to it.
Hmm.
Um, and I have an artist on here who I absolutely fell in love with when they first came out. And then their newer stuff I don't like as much. So, but I'll listen to it. And
Is
if I
this
love
on
it,
your list now?
yeah, it's on my list now. You'll get there.
All right. Now I got to figure out which one it is. It can't be Billie Holiday because
No,
she's.
can't be Billie Holiday. See, there's a little lightness that takes me out of my vampire mode, Billie
Yeah,
Holiday.
for sure. Well, let's get to track 5.
Mhm.
This is London Grammar, Night
Mhm.
Call.
Her voice, come on. Like her voice is insane.
Good
And
stuff.
that song too, like, I don't know, it just reminds me of like an angsty breakup. And I love it.
And I haven't heard them for a while, and they kind of fell off my radar because they haven't been coming in any of my algorithms. So when you put it on the list, I was like, damn it, I forgot about them. And I do get distracted because there's so many songs
There's
that
so many.
make these playlists, and you
Yeah.
kind of this is the ones hitting your head right now. But the London Grammar, I really, really got into them when I first heard them. I think this might have been around 2014. So right
Yeah.
after this album is from 2013, I think, this song.
Yeah. It's a really early album of theirs. And her voice is incredible. And she's still cranking out a lot of music. And I think she does some that are like in clubs. So some,
Hmm.
and I love those too. I think they're totally awesome. Uh, so yeah, I think she's mega talented and is very evocative. Like, what is going on? So, in the same way that you were talking about Modest Mouse, like, I just really want to get underneath those lyrics. And so, if I'm listening to one of my old playlists and she comes on, I'm just like, oh, this is so great.
Yeah. I was in the car the other morning going to the store or going to maybe somewhere, and I remember just having Spotify connected through CarPlay, in the car, and it was playing these songs, and I wasn't sure of where this list came from. And then they played this song by Ministry. If you remember
Huh.
Ministry, they
Uh-uh.
might fit
I'm
into the
ready.
vampire. They could definitely be in there. But it was one of the early songs, which was a lot more techno. They have a
Uh-huh.
song that was quite that I first heard them. That's how I got into them. Halloween, and
Huh.
I may have put that on a playlist from here or there. But this song, what's it called? Hey Now or Hey,
Oh, yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But I hadn't heard that in so long, and it just came up on my on this on the car. And so then when I got to out, I think I went to the gym. So then I was kind of looking through. I was like, I want to keep playing that song. And then when I looked at my Spotify, it wasn't there.
That's
And
so weird.
and I couldn't find how that song or those succession of maybe six songs, it was like 15 minutes drive, were playing with me on in the car. And I still don't know. And I checked because I have Apple Music, but it wasn't Apple because that doesn't come up. It automatically will link to Spotify only in the car because of
Huh.
the way it's set up. So I still today don't know how this playlist or how these few songs, but the Ministry one, I hadn't heard it in so many years. So that
Huh.
one, All Day or something like that. I forget what it's called, but
I think you're right. The Hey Now, I think
is it
was
Hey
it a
Now?
London Grammar song?
No, no, it's Ministry.
Oh, okay, okay. Then yeah. That's
And so I
crazy.
was just so I was just like it just pulled it up and it played and then it linked to me and I don't know how it did because it wasn't in anyone else's playlist like of one of the upcoming guests or something because sometimes I play that when I'm just to kind of
Uh,
hear their songs,
uh,
but I don't know where it came from and I can't find in my history. It's not in a playlist, so sometimes it could be like Spotify suggests this playlist or something like
uh,
that, that's great, but I don't know where it came from.
that's so crazy. I love that it came up and you're like, oh, it just brings you right back, which is just cool.
Yeah,
I'll have to check them out. I'll have to check them out. That's so neat.
but I think the
That's
song
weird.
from London Grammar that I first heard and got into was it's off the same album, but I'm trying to remember what that song was. It might be Hey Now, which I don't know how I said that because I didn't remember the name of it.
I think it's I think it's energetically circling you and just had to pop up the universe.
So weird.
Who knows, Sean? I love it though. I love it when that happens.
Um, and this song was used in a film as well.
Oh,
Did you see the movie Drive?
mm-mm.
I remember it, but I'm thinking who's the actor who was in it? I can't think. It's Ryan. It's one of the Ryans, but it's quite a dark film where I think, or something like that, where he drives. And so I think, but it does make sense because the movie was shot mostly at night and it's quite a dark caper, and so this song fits quite. No
I'll have to,
vampires, as far as I remember, but
I'm writing all these things down because I'm gonna have to check out some of the things you're mentioning. You mentioned, I think I wrote down in the beginning what you were talking about too, the independent FM. That's super cool. Mexican Morrissey. Huh. I've got to check that out. That sounds so neat.
Um, we get to track 6. This is Tom Odell.
Yes.
Flying. Now, again,
Mhm.
I wasn't familiar with Tom Odell.
Really?
No. So this is a new one for me. Thank you for introducing me to that.
So one of the first song that I was introduced to with him is called Another Love. And it's a really popular song, but, and one of my favorites. And Flying is off of a newer album, and I love a lot of songs on that album. Uh, it gets pretty dark in that album too. Like he feels like somebody who goes on one extreme or the other, like it's super happy and light, or it's really, really like I'm about to I don't want to be in this world anymore. And that's a range. And so I appreciate that about him. His newer stuff, this is the one that I'm like, his newer stuff I don't love. It starts to move into a little bit of that poppy thing.
Hmm.
And is one of those things where like, oh, every song he has I'm gonna love. And I don't. But I love the Flying song, and it's on a lot of my playlists because it makes me really happy. But people think it's super dark, and I just think it's beautiful.
Yeah. No, I really liked it. And his voice was I just automatically it fit to some of your other songs. Like it didn't feel like it stood out in
Yeah.
a kind of like random or something. So, but at the same time, like his just standalone, his voice, I really it was interesting because I wasn't that familiar with him.
Well, you should check out Another Love too, because I think that's about a breakup. And he just, he's got some raw lyrics that I think are pretty clever. And it hits those kind of deep emotional places around relationship and when things aren't going so well
Hmm.
that I appreciate.
We come to track 7.
Which is
This
fun, huh?
is the Dave Matthews Band. And the song, is it called Crash or Crash
Uh-huh.
Into Me?
I think it's just called Crash. And
Crash.
it's,
Okay.
again, I added that because it was such a pivotal time in my life. Dave Matthews Band, I don't really listen to, but again, my husband introduced that to me, and it was sort of like our song because that's right when we got together. So I listened to it a lot, and it's just like, that's so if Tom Odell is when things aren't going well, Crash is when things are going well. And
Hmm.
so I just love that kind of that amazing feeling of falling in love and just being caught up in another person's world. And that song is like really epitomizes that time, um, that kind of magical.
It's very much to me it sounded, I mean, because I'm not that familiar with a lot of Dave Matthews stuff either. I'm not a like so didn't know this song in particular, but it sounded like a very much a love song.
It's totally a love song. It's totally, totally a love song. And when you first fall in love, right? When you're totally
Yeah.
obsessed with this other person, and for better or for worse, it's a great song.
Yeah.
It was just a love song. Yeah. Yeah.
Do like with these, is there like an emotional thread that you were noticing as you were picking these songs?
The thing that I was thinking about with all of this, uh, I guess I kind of mirrored the way that I create work, especially recently, whether I'm working with other people or just doing one for myself, like those pivotal moments. So when I was thinking about music, I was really thinking about music over the course of my life, which is like way too long, um, to
Join the
try
club.
and do 10, right? Uh, so so the music that I listened to like as a kid and going to college, like in college it was like the and the Cure and like Eurythmics were in there, and like Cocteau Twins, remember them?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, of
Um,
course.
right? So like that was a whole thing. And I wanted to try and get music from each like pivotal point of my life. And I couldn't, right? There was no way because that's just way too many songs. I tried. You
Hmm.
didn't let me, which is good because
You
we'd
try
be
to
here
sneak
forever.
3 in there.
So I have two in this playlist that are really about falling in love and or just meeting my husband. Because he was the first person who saw my light and not my darkness. So many people, I made them uncomfortable and they just thought I was such a weirdo, which I am, I think, maybe, but I think that's a compliment now. But before it was like I wasn't normal. And now I'm so glad. Um,
Do
but
you think that's age that's kind of made you feel comfortable with that, or do you think it's just a time now that people
both
can be?
I, I think it's a time where we can really embrace the parts of ourselves like there at least for me in the circle and world that I live in there is an embracing of that other part of being human whereas before at least in the circles that I was in it wasn't like we're still just only focusing on what we want people to see. And I don't want to go around like spreading darkness, but I want to really normalize it. Uh, so he, but I also wanted to, I wasn't recognized for my light, and I have a lot of it. Like I'm a big, squishy, sensitive, loving marshmallow on the inside, and now mostly on the outside. But um, people didn't see my light, and I was really afraid to show it. And my husband saw it, and that was a first. That was really a first for me and wanted to know more of it. And so that having somebody fall in love with me the way he fell in love with me was awesome. And so like 32 flavors and um, Dave Matthews, like I didn't listen to Dave Matthews, but I sure liked this song, especially when somebody was like saying this is how I feel about you. So it was great. And then I would send things back from like you know, because we're still doing mixtapes then. But
Mhm.
like, I think that U2 does a version of Unchained Melody, and I loved it. And he's like, "Yeah, I don't like that song." So the ones that I sent him, he was like, "What are these?"
Mhm.
Um, so
But do
anyway,
you? It's hard for me to see you not in light because I feel like since we've met and talked and just communicated, there's this energy and this kind of so it doesn't seem like you like if before your husband saw it, what kind of person you were because I'm struggling to kind of see how maybe you aren't the same person unless you
well,
weren't.
I wasn't. I mean, I was really troubled and oh, I just made so many terrible choices, and that was an unconscious reaction to what was held in my own body. I stole things, I lied, I didn't know how to have a relationship with people. I was super manipulative. I wanted to be rescued. I none of it was intentional. I didn't know that I was manipulating. I was just doing whatever I thought I needed to do in order to have what I thought I needed, which was acceptance, right? I just wanted
Hmm.
to be accepted. And so the way so many of us, I think, move through the world pretending to be somebody that we're not because who I thought I was unacceptable. And um, I was really different. And I was
Were you
really,
angry?
I was really sad. I was really depressed. I got angry later. I was a natural victim. And,
Okay.
you know, growing up in the 80s and watching movies like The 16 Candles or The Breakfast Club, like pouty, beautiful, silent, and
With
somebody
Molly Ringwald in that.
yeah. Eating disorders, right? The whole, right? It's like such a mess. And I wanted relationships. Like I really wanted a boyfriend, and I had this terrible crush on one person forever who never felt the same. Actually, he did finally feel the same way about me for a very brief period of time. I have a funny story about that. But I didn't know how to be in a relationship. And so if there was a boyfriend, I wouldn't let them touch me. And that's a problem in for horny high school boys, right? Like I would hold hands, but
Yeah.
that was it. And so like I was terrified of my own sexuality and I had no idea why. And so things fell into place later, But
Yeah, yeah, of course.
going through that was it was terrible. And so the relationships that I did have were really, really unhealthy in college. They were really unhealthy. And there were the very, very few of them. And so, yeah, I was pretty miserable. And people ran away from me, and they should. They really should have. And because I wasn't fun. It wasn't just that I wasn't fun to be around, I was dangerous to be around. So, and again, not intentionally, but I had a lot of shame and confusion around why I repelled people because I have this other side of me that's like so loving and kind, but I wasn't showing up that way. It was way too vulnerable. Like vulnerability and emotions were absolutely not encouraged where I mean when I was growing up and I both of my parents worked and yeah, I just I wasn't a happy kid at all.
Hmm.
Um, so I got happier, but it got pretty dark, right? When I was living in Prague, like I was out late at night. I had a choice to go back to the place I was renting, and I chose to go buy drugs instead. And I didn't have any money, and somehow, and it's the middle of winter, and I sat down on a curb and I'm like, what am I doing? Right? Like, what am I doing? And I had missed the last train back into town, and I knew like there are no like there are phone booths, that's it. And I wasn't dressed properly, and I'm like, if I stay here, I will die. Like I could just lean back in this snowy bank because it was the middle of winter, and that'll be it. And do I want to do that? And something inside of me was like, no, I don't. And it was a very, very long walk back to civilization and somebody who could give me a ride back into town. So I made a choice living there that I needed to start taking care of myself and start changing the way that I interacted with people. Um, so yeah, I was really dangerous. I was
Were you
very
trying to hurt yourself?
absolutely 100%. And I would walk that city and I would walk into places that were extremely dangerous and it had very recently opened up and they hated Americans, which I don't blame them. I was often pickpocketed and spat on and jarred around, but I was also hopping trains without without paying for tickets, and I'd be escorted off of them. And like I was just taking risks. I was stealing things in Germany. Like if I had gotten caught, I would have been in a world of trouble. And just making horrible, horrible, dangerous choices and putting myself in very vulnerable situations with yeah, with some pretty shady characters. So I don't think I was consciously trying to hurt myself, but I wasn't sure I wanted to live. It, and I was waiting for somebody else to take care of that for me. And then when I found myself in a position where I could choose that and choose it in a way that was pretty non-violent, um,
Mm.
I, it was it was very tempting. And I sat there for a very long time. And so whatever it was that was like, no, get up. And I'm glad I did. But so those experiences and the choices that I made, I felt horrible. Like I felt horribly shameful and guilty over a lot of them. And I really caused myself a lot of suffering. So I had not experienced somebody seeing me and liking what they saw. That when I met my husband, that was a first. It was
Hmm.
truly a first, the way he saw me and that he accepted my darkness, right? I had so much of it. And I was very honest with him about all of the things that I had felt terrible about. And he took every single one. Whereas my family with experiences would be like, well, good luck finding somebody who love you now. Like those were the messages that I received. Like if I had made a mistake and had some pretty dire consequences on them. Um, they were lifelong things that I thought I was going to have to deal with. And sort of have penance around forever. Like, so unforgivable was the message that I had. And he was just like, "Pff, that's nothing." So I just had never had that message before.
Yeah.
So,
We get to track 8. This is
yeah,
the incredible Billie Holiday, as
yeah,
I did cheat and say it earlier. Sorry.
it's no
Um,
problem. It doesn't
this
have to
is
be.
a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful song. It's one of my favorites by her too. Just this song in general,
Yeah,
"Summertime."
so good. So I was living in Somerville, Massachusetts, outside of Boston, with a friend of mine from art school, and we would just sit in our apartment and drink Lipton tea and listen to all of these, to Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald, and like it was just, and it was hot, and we didn't have any money and we hardly ever ate anything and we would drink so much tea and get so jittery, and I don't know, we had this huge apartment for just the two of us, and we would just sort of bang around in there. It was empty pretty much, and I don't know, just it was such a so in that it was after college and right before I left to go to Europe, and I don't know, I was just barely scraping by month to month, and it just reminded me of a sweet, sweet music from an older era, and just easy, right? It was summer, and I was like waitressing, and nothing mattered. And we would like make art. She was a glass major, and I was a painting major, and we would just make art, and it was just a it was like the calm before the storm.
I think this. I think it's originally from Porgy and Bess, but I love Miles Davis's version that he's
Yeah.
done
Yep.
of that. But Billie Holiday's, her voice, I remember hearing her, and I was probably 16 when I first heard her, and maybe it was "God Bless the Child" and then one or two other, like, but "In My Solitude" and all this. And again, I was just like, who is that? What is that? And it was
I
just,
know.
maybe I had heard it before, but I never, it's just background, because growing up in the South, there's a lot of jazz, there's a lot
Yeah.
of music that you would just, that other people, like, they come to places like New Orleans because of the music, whereas you hear it all the time that you're kind of indifferent to it in a way,
Yeah.
whereas you gravitate to other areas of music like England or, other forms of music.
Yep.
But I remember then when it just triggered, and again, it's the voice and the lyrics, because
Yep.
you just can't hide from her, just her voice, and it's so much. I don't
Yeah.
even know how to describe it. It's almost like this whole animal within itself, and then you see the
Yeah.
image of her and what she is. But her voice is just a whole being.
It's a powerhouse. Exactly. She has an energy of her own that is timeless, and yeah, just so beautiful and powerful.
I remember
I
there
could,
was a kind of blues band in New Orleans where we go to this place called Cafe Brazil, and they would play, and they would do mostly covers, and they were like funk, blues, some Hendrix even, because the guitarist almost looked like him, and he used to play like as good, almost as good as Hendrix. But
wow.
then they did some of these bluesy, and the drummer was singing "Summertime," and I remember sitting there, and I think I heard this around the same time as I heard Billie Holiday version, and he had this clarinet while he's playing the drums. He's playing this clarinet or flute or something, and then he's you know keeping time to some drums while he's doing that, and then kicks in, drops the wood instrument, and starts singing and playing. And I was just remember sitting there. I must have been, I don't know, 17 or 18. I was still young, not old enough to drink, but we were in the bar. Um, it's the South. But I remember just like hearing that, like his version of the song, and it was again so touching, because it just, that version was just another. It was the lyrics and their kind of like how they interpreted it was just so cool. But
Yeah. I love that story. That's really neat.
where do you have? people like Billie Holiday or Ella Fitzgerald now? Like, do they still sit somewhere with you?
Absolutely. And especially when I was in the studio longer and uh they're in certain playlists where the playlist is pretty eclectic. And so they just come up, there'll be hundreds of songs in that playlist and I'll just put it on and then they'll come up randomly as they do. And it surprises the people often who are with me that there's music from all of these different genres because some like the other songs on my play. I'm like, is it a secret or can I just say what they are?
Hmm.
Um, so like the Paper Plane song or even a symphony will show up on the same playlist in a day. And so they're random, so they'll just come up and I love it. I like having the diversity of music throughout a day, especially if I'm in there for a long time or working with people.
When you're working with people, do you and you're like doing your soul portraits and you're asking them for pictures and stuff, do you ever ask them for music?
Absolutely. Depending on, it's like music, novels, poetry, cookbooks, like whatever media, right? Because it's all
Hmm.
media, whatever media went into shaping you. What are the things that you feel made an impact on who you are today? Whatever those things are, that's it. Like that's what we're going for. So it can be
Almost like a
anything.
hope chest or something.
Kinda, yeah, of like media. Like what if you could encapsulate all the things, or you can go by decades, like are there, or just one moment in time is so powerful that that's where we get stuck, right? And it's not always stuck, and it doesn't always have to be the darkness, but it can be like that song that I was talking about with my husband. Like it was an anchor for me in a positive way, and that there are all these other experiences that added to who I am. So they're
Hmm.
all valid. So what's valid for you? Like I like books, right? So your favorite poet, your favorite author for a novel, your favorite nonfiction, all of that. Like why is it your favorite? What resonated with you? And that goes into your portrait. So depending on if you're focusing on a single event or decades, like I have one painting that covers 30 years. I have another painting that's a single day.
Hmm.
So it can be anything. But yeah, hope chest, I love that. It's a great way of saying it.
There's got to be quite a considerable amount of trust that people have to put
Yes, they
to
have
work with
to.
you.
Yes, and I think that's an energy thing that people would feel from me when they come in and meet me, and we'll do like a discovery call or something like that. But yeah, there's absolutely a lot of trust and a knowing that I am not here to provide any judgment, right? It is a
Hmm.
safe place and to offer my compassion for their lived experience. We're all in, like I really believe we're all in this together and we there's a collective trauma and there's an individual trauma, and it doesn't have to be big T trauma. It can be like whatever. We all have different nervous systems, and so something that might quote unquote feel minor to one person is enormous to another, and we don't know what it's like. None of us have any idea what it's like to be in another person's shoes. We can guess, we can we can come together and say, I think I know, but we don't really know. And so for me, I just feel like it's such a privilege to hold another person's story, and I only want to do that with love and acceptance.
Yeah, I love that. Well, let's get to track 9.
Mm.
This is the Pixies,
Aha.
the song Hey.
Hey, such a good one.
I saw them live actually early on when I think it was right after the second album came out, and they were playing a small venue, so it was really cool.
I bet. I'm so jealous. Like, just such a cool band. And for me, they were kind of very different than I loved their energy. And again, it's like, how do we love each other? Um, and that question of what relationship can be, isn't, where we misunderstand. I don't know. That's what I get when I listen to the Pixies. I don't know what you get. What do you get when you listen to them?
I really got turned on to them because my roots in a lot of music stemmed from punk.
Hmm.
So then friends were like, but then I got into more melodic and kind of like indie music in the 80s. And so friends were like, okay, well, if you like this and you like that, they were like my Spotify saying, well, then you will love the Pixies. And I was like, at first I was a little bit, don't push them on me. I'll see. And then I kind of listened the first time and it was the first album is a bit, or the two, I think it was two EPs or something, were a little bit kind of heavy,
Hmm.
and then melodic, and then the second album where this one's the songs from was definitely more. The lyrics were a little bit more defined. The music was definitely um, more articulate in a way, in
Hmm.
the producing side of them and bringing out the best of them.
Hmm.
I did say this on another podcast, I wasn't very much big into grunge, but I think without the Pixies, there would have been no Seattle grunge scene. I honestly don't believe because Nirvana, they admitted a big, huge weight of influence from the Pixies, and of course, several other bands, but the Pixies, I think, were that okay, it's okay to kind of take what we believe, these other bands, and then put it with something else.
Yeah.
So
Which
I think
is,
they're a huge influence, Godfather, to so many artists that came after them.
I think that's really well said. I agree with you on all of that. Um, yeah, I think we were in Seattle when Nirvana was getting really, really big. Um, who is the other guy?
Pearl
Had a,
Jam,
yeah, that's exactly, what was his name?
Eddie Vedder or Eddie
Yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah. His voice was pretty incredible. Yeah, but same. I wasn't super, it didn't evoke anything really deep in me, but I agree with you. I can see the thread. And also from punk rock, right? Like, and
Mhm.
some of the super in what is one of the major female punk rock? It's another one that my daughter really likes, and if she were here, she would just know it immediately. And something
A
girl,
female punk.
huh? Hmm.
Mm, interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And she was like oh, darn it. She was it. Like she was the first female punk rocker. Yeah, it's gonna bug me, but I don't remember. But you're
Lydia
absolutely,
Lunch.
I don't know.
Mm. And not, I mean, obviously more gothic was Susie and the Banshees, Susie Sue.
Right.
So
No,
not her.
no, no, I
Yeah.
think she's pretty obscure. So it's
Huh.
gonna drive me crazy. I'll have to email it to you later.
Yes. You have to tell me now because now I'm going to be like combing through female punk bands and seeing who that's Exene from X. I don't know if that's but they were quite
Uh-uh.
heavy. Um,
Something girl, like something girl. Oh, I don't know.
okay. Another nerd fact that I'm going to share with you is you mentioned the Cocteau Twins, but the
Uh-huh.
Pixies were actually on the same record label, 4AD, out of the UK, as the
Really?
Cocteau Twins.
That is
So
very, very interesting fact. Look at you.
I'm
That's
full of
so
useless
No,
information
it's so
anytime.
cool. I love it. No, I loved them in college. Like love, love, loved them. Um, Again, that sort of like one song over and over and over obsessiveness. What is that called now? Hyperfixation?
Yeah. What's next for you? Where do you want to go from, soul portraits? You have workshops. You do also, are you doing some other coaching besides or one-to-one?
No, commissions might be considered coaching in one-to-one, and they're absolutely my favorite thing ever to do just because I get to be in creative space with some remarkable people doing really brave things. And I get so much meaning out of it. Um, I love getting a peek into to people's lived experience. It's just a really powerful tool to get to know someone without
Mm.
having, yeah. So I just do workshops and commissions. And I think we're thinking about, because I have a lot of artwork from over the years and to do a pop-up show and just be like, yeah, this is all like, come on in, let's talk about art. And there's something about having a original painting in your home, like it has energy that is kind of untouchable otherwise. Like it's hard to get that kind of energy in a print from IKEA or Pier One or whatever.
Absolutely. No,
So,
I love portraits or images, like photography, and I love paintings. And just having some, and if there's local artists that I meet, especially like when traveling around Europe or different places where you can find different, I have this one painting of these horse riders, but it almost has this Salvador Dali kind of effect of the
mhm,
horses.
mhm,
And then come to find, I never actually got to meet the painter, but it was in California that I got the painting. And the guy in the gallery was telling us about him, and he was just completely mad. And it almost made it more exciting because you're like, well, I definitely got to have this because he sounds like a lunatic, which is in a good way. Like
right.
in his stuff, he had these massive bulls. He did this huge, which is not the one I got, but it was almost a whole wall with this bull.
Uh-huh.
And then he had ballerinas again with almost like the same legs as the horses that kind of went that long kind of, if you see some Dali pictures that had that style,
Mhm,
but it
mhm.
was just incredible into his own style, but definitely you can see some of his influences, but really
Yeah,
interesting way that he painted, but you could definitely get that he had this kind of madness with him that in
yeah,
a good, like I said, in a good way. So
right.
that really intrigued me. And even some local like friends who were doing some paint, even stuff that they were like, yeah, this was just something I did or had to do for a project, and they've given it to me, and I've cherished it, and still because it's way special to have.
Yeah, yeah. It's so neat. And it's really quite a juxtaposition to have like bulls and also ballerinas. And I'm very intrigued by that story. I have a lot
I
of
think he's
questions.
still alive, which I don't know if that's good or bad for my painting's value, but in regards to his life, for sure I'm happy. But I think he's still painting, and I did come across the gallery to see some other stuff by him. So
That's really neat.
we come to track 10. This is now, is he Polish?
I that's Henry Gorecki. I don't know. And I don't even know how I found. Oh, I do. I was working in a like a halfway house. And there was a gentleman there, and I forget what I was for people struggling with different layers of mental illness. And this was one of his favorite pieces of music. So, and I was like freshly out of college. Um, and I just was so struck by it, the voice
Hmm.
of this woman. Um, and so this is another song that I sent my husband on those mixtapes. And he appreciates it, but I was also there was a time when I was doing medical illustration and photography for Dartmouth Medical School, and I
Hmm.
would be in the dark room like blasting Henry Gorecki like again over and over and over again. And everyone, there were only three of us in this studio, but they were all listening to what I was listening to because it was at top volume. So I just think that's really funny. Um, I think it's a beautiful piece of music, and
Yeah.
I know it's been in films, but it's just that sort of hauntingly beautiful aria, right? It's
Yeah.
hard to go.
No, I was familiar with him in this particular Symphony Number Three,
Mhm.
which this is from. So it was a little bit familiar, but yeah, it's just apparently it's known as the Symphony of Sorrowful Songs. So
It
it makes the
fits,
playlist.
right? It made the playlist, the vampire playlist. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Yep, there you have it. There's my playlist.
So give me a couple of remind those who didn't see the list of a few that you wanted to put in there that we didn't get to
Oh,
and make it to the 10.
didn't make it to the 10. So, like, I loved Hallelujah by Rufus Wainwright. a lot of
It's
people,
Leonard Cohen's
yeah,
song, but
yep,
Rufus Wainwright's version.
yep, yep. And I again, it's that like relationship and the kind of depending on the relationship, right? We have highs and lows and I just think over time, like the relationship that we have with ourselves over time and the relationships that we share with a significant other over time, that song really like nails that for me because love changes or relationship changes. Uh, and it's interesting to me too, having kids and like different ways of knowing people both over time. And it's really weird to like be pregnant, give birth, and then have children who like become themselves, which is
Hmm.
super amazing. But it's like I knew absolutely everything about them at one point, and now I only know what I observe and what they choose to share with me. And it's such a gift. And having children was pretty much the hardest thing I think there is to do. And it absolutely made me a better person. And so, yeah, and that you can, it was a very conscious decision for me to have children. Um, and it's a complicated thing to do, and it changes the relationship that I had with my husband, and in wonderful ways and also in really difficult, challenging ways. And we don't ever talk about that either. And so these songs all feel like they hold the complexity. Like, so yes, they might be kind of dark, but darkness is such an integral part of who we are. And so it's the complexity and the dynamicness, there's a different way of using that word, but it's so dynamic and it's so changing and it's always moving. And I think that the songs in this playlist speak to that. And like Regina Spektor, her song Samson, I love what she does with her voice and also with her lyrics.
Hmm.
Um, so that was one that I really, and then like I think Paper Planes I mentioned and really wanted to put that one into because I like how she sort of points towards violence and um, the way that we like, don't even really, it becomes so common that we don't acknowledge its impact, like whatever kind of violence that we're around. Like we ignore it and it's so present. And I just find that really interesting. So I was a little all over the place there with that answer to that question. There's so many songs.
What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Um, I have Instagram and anybody can message me over Instagram, which is also on Facebook and oddly enough, TikTok. And I think that's it. I have a website, but
Does the
everything is,
website have any of your artwork?
yeah. And Instagram, because I have an Instagram page that's just artwork, and I have an Instagram page that's soul portraits. So, because all of this started as artwork, right? Like I just started as a pretty traditional gallery artist and then moved away from all of that to do this other stuff. But it's all there. Like it's always art. It's always about art and music.
I
Um,
think without art, life is a very dull place to be.
right? Like what do we do? I 100% agree with you. Dance, theater, music, painting. There's so many. Those are just a few.
Devorah, thank you so much for being my guest and for sharing your 10 tracks with us, but also so much more. I look forward to seeing more from you and to keep the vampire, you know,
Streak.
to keep going, keep it alive since you have no choice. I think you're gonna stay and stay existing. Um, I share with everyone as we say goodbye just to be kind, be humble, be love, and I wish the best for you. And thank you so much for being a guest.
Thanks, Sean. It's so great to talk to you. It was really fun.
Thank you.
suffers for his sports jacket.